Hi everyone, I'm Cesar Cano, lover of anything tacos, and I'm taking over Taco Gear's YouTube channel in a series we are calling Taco Foundations. In this very important series, we're gonna cover the foundation of the taco, the tortilla. Without a tortilla, there is no taco. And I believe delicious tortilla can mask a terrible filling, but a bad tortilla takes away from a delicious filling. So this is a very important step if you love tacos and love making them at home. I'm going to show you how to make 3 types of tortillas: nixtamal, flour, and what I believe is the most easily accessible maseca. So in this episode, we're going to cover how to make tortillas using corn flour, or it's commonly called maseca. For this recipe, you're going to need 1 cup of maseca, or your preferred brand of corn flour. And then you're going to need 6 ounces of warm water. There's no need to boil it. Turn on your tab, and then when the water starts getting warm to the touch, it's ready to use. Step number 1 is take your masa flour, put it in a bowl. And before I go into it, I want to explain the motions that your hands will be doing. We're going to do a motion that I like to call the 2-finger swirl. That's to incorporate our dry ingredients with our wet ingredients. And then we're going to do the scoop and fold. And that's to make sure that our dough has the correct consistency and the liquid is evenly distributed throughout the dry ingredients. So to start off, make a well. Add half of your water amount. And then this is where we're going to incorporate 2-finger swirl. So take your index finger and middle finger and just start swirling the water, reaching the edges of the dry ingredient, the masa flour. And every time I come around the edge, I pull a small amount into the center so it starts incorporating with my dry ingredients. Once I feel all the water that I initially added has been absorbed, well then that's when I add my other water amount. And same thing, I repeat the 2-finger swirl technique. And what I'm looking for is all these clumps to become one unified mass. Now see, I'm getting them. And look at that, fingers are pretty much clean, so I still need another dash of water. And here I'm gonna go away from the swirl and I'm gonna do scoop and fold. So I'm gonna take some of the masa and then just fold it on itself. So I'm scooping and folding, scooping and folding. I rotate the bowl just to make sure that I get any bits that stuck to the side. Okay, and now I test for hydration. Rolling around my hands, should feel like Play-Doh, but it should leave a film of dough on my hands. It's not quite there yet, so it needs a little bit more water. But now I want to be careful and not add too much, so I'm just going to wet my hands. And that residual water is what I'll be adding. It's safer to add water a little at a time instead of adding too much and then you have to add more flour and it just becomes a bigger mess. So patience is key. All right. Take it. I'm still folding it on itself. I'm close. I think this will be the last bit of water that it will need because as you can see, my hands are starting to have that thin film of masa. Like if I go like that, you see it becoming there. So that is the ideal hydration to get super soft, pliable tortillas. The other visual sign is like, notice how I'm folding now and it likes to stick to the side of the bowl, like it doesn't all come with me. That's another indication that I'm at the right water level. Yep, there we go. That's exactly what I'm looking for. Nice film throughout the fingers. So I'm gonna cover it with the damp water just for about 5 minutes, let it rest. Then I will portion, press, and cook. I let the dough rest for 5 minutes. And you want to check the consistency of it again. Remember, roll it around your hand. Make sure it's leaving a thin film of dough, of masa on your hands. Because sometimes during that rest time, the final absorption of the liquid happens and you realize that it wasn't at the consistency you wanted, so you might end up with some dry tortillas. So let it rest, let hydration do its thing, and then retest it. I had to add just a smidge of water. I just wet my hands and reworked it into the dough. So I'm ready to portion. And the best way I find is just take, half or a third of the dough, and between your hands, roll it into a cylinder that's kind of equal size, and then I just break it off into about 1.5 inch pieces. And then I set those aside. Might be able to get 3 tortillas out of that. And then each piece, then I just roll into a round, and I'm ready to put it into my press and cook it. Once all your masa has been portioned into the individual tortilla rounds, it's time to press. Here we have a tortilla press. I took a quart-size Ziploc bag and split the bag in two, and that's gonna give me my barrier to keep my tortilla from sticking to my press. I check for even thickness, rotate it a little bit, and press down. Nice little trick to make sure that your tortilla releases completely is to lift one side of the plastic, flip it over to the other side, and release the other side of the plastic, and then your tortilla should easily come off. Make sure to preheat your comal to medium-high heat before laying your tortilla on top. You're looking for it to bubble up, and then you're looking for the edges to dry out and kind of start curling in on itself, and that's going to give you the visual indication of when it's time to flip your tortilla. Total cooking time should be 45 seconds, depending on how hot your comal is. So I see here that the bubbles have happened, the yellow color has darkened some, and the edges are starting to lift up. They self-release. So all I have to go in is make sure that there's no points that are sticking. This part's still sticking a little bit, so I'm gonna be patient. I'm gonna give it, 5 more seconds for the rest of it to kind of lift up on its own. And once it self-releases, just flip it over, press down a little bit so all those little air pockets that were created when you dropped it on the heat are exposed to the surface of the comal. On this other side, I'm gonna give it, another 20 seconds before I flip it over. Make sure that everything is cooked through. Nothing worse than biting into a tortilla and it's raw in the middle. Before I flip it, another thing that I'm looking for is if I slide it around the comal, does it move on its own or is it still sticking? So it's moving. I can choose to flip it now. I'm gonna give it 5 more seconds. Kind of press down on some of the spots that I feel didn't have as much contact with the comal surface. Go ahead and flip it over, press down again. So I cook my tortilla about 20 seconds per side. So far I flipped it 3 times. I'm gonna flip it the final time. Give it a final press, make sure all areas get a chance to cook evenly. I like using the cast iron skillet or clay comals because it gives it this beautiful char, its texture, its flavor. But a non-stick pan would work just fine, or a non-stick griddle pan. Remember, we're looking for sides drying out and raising up. And this tortilla's done. If you're making several tortillas, it's always good to have a tortilla warmer, a cloth where you can put them in. Or if you're gonna be serving directly, you can transfer immediately to a plate where the tortilla is ready to hug your favorite filling. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like and subscribe button. And when you make these tortillas at home, make sure to tag me on my Instagram, Takesan. I'd love to see them. And also make sure to visit my website, takesan.com, for step-by-step instructions, measurements, and this instructional video. I'll see you guys all next week when we cover how to make flour tortillas. Adios!